My name is Hannah Campbell, and I never thought I'd be the kind of person to burn a bridge I built with my own hands. But there I was, standing 4 rows back at the Tech Trends Summit in San Francisco, my heart pounding like a server under a DDoS attack. On stage, David Pierce, Nexacore's CTO, was flashing his $1 million smile, presenting my AI optimization algorithm to a room of venture capitalists and tech influencers. The screen behind him glowed with code, my code line 312, marked with my initials, EH, opt v3 post SF outage. I'd written it in a haze of Red Bull and desperation 3 years ago, a quiet signature of pride I thought no one would notice. But there it was, branded as Nexacore's proprietary Ether engine, and David didn't even flinch when our eyes met across the crowd. No guilt, no flicker of recognition, just that polished smirk, like he'd bottled Silicon Valley's ego and sprayed it on like cologne. I felt like a ghost watching someone else live my life. My stomach twisted, not just from the theft, that was old news, but from the erasure. I was invisible, a nobody in the legacy I'd coded line by line. 5 years ago, I was a 24-year-old from a nowhere town in Ohio, raised by a mom who worked double shifts at the county hospital to keep our lights on. I'd clawed my way to Stanford, fueled by her mantra, "Protect your work, Hannah. It's all you've got." That's why I'd patented my algorithm in secret, a safeguard I never thought I'd need. But standing there, watching David parade my creation like a trophy he'd earned, I felt the weight of every late night, every skipped meal, every moment I'd poured into Nexacore. And for what? To be a footnote they forgot to write? The room clapped as David clicked to the next slide, my load-balancing equations dancing across the screen. I wanted to scream, to storm the stage and tell them it was mine, my brain, my blisters, my 2 a.m. breakthroughs. But I didn't. Instead, I stood frozen, my hands trembling in my pockets, remembering the moment that brought me here. It wasn't just the stolen code. It was 6 months ago when I walked into David's glass-walled office, my heart in my throat, and asked for a raise. I'd laid out my case. Ether, Nexacore's flagship product, was built on my algorithm. It had slashed latency by 40%, one contract's worth millions. I wasn't asking for the moon, just a number that matched my worth. David leaned back, chuckled like I'd told a bad joke, and said, "Hannah, you're a coder. Stay in your lane." That laugh, it was metal in my mouth, the taste of every doubt I'd buried to prove I belonged here. It wasn't just dismissal. It was a verdict. I'd never be more than the girl who debugged their failures while they cashed the checks. But David didn't know about the patent, tucked away under my maiden name, filed with a lawyer's help when I was still naive enough to believe in team. That was my ace, my Kevlar vest, and as I stood in that conference hall, watching him bask in my stolen glory, I knew it was time to play it. I wasn't always this sharp-edged. Rewind 5 years, and I was just Hannah Campbell, a wide-eyed 24-year-old who'd stumbled into Silicon Valley after winning a hackathon I almost skipped. Back then, I was all ambition and no armor, a small-town girl from Ohio who'd grown up watching my mom, a nurse, come home with shadows under her eyes, but a stubborn smile. She'd tell me, "You're smarter than this town, Hannah. Don't let anyone dim you." That's what carried me through Stanford, through late nights coding in dorm rooms, and into Nexacore's shiny office after they scouted me at AscendHack. Their pitch was intoxicating. Join our family. Disrupt the cloud. Change the world. I believed it, hook, line, and sinker. Nexacore was a startup on the rise, promising AI-driven cloud solutions that could outpace the giants. They needed a genius to make it real, and I was it, though they'd never admit it. I threw myself into the work, building Ether from scratch. It was my algorithm, a masterpiece of distributed efficiency that cut latency like a knife through butter. I'd sit in our dim server room, coffee staining my hoodie, watching test runs drop latency by 40%. I cried the first time it worked, not from joy but relief, like I'd proven I wasn't an imposter. My mom's voice echoed in my head, "Protect your work." So I did, filing a patent in secret, paying a grizzled lawyer in monthly installments while surviving on instant noodles. But Nexacore? They didn't see me. They saw a tool. I worked 14-hour days, weekends bleeding into weekdays, debugging code while David and his buddies golfed with investors. Ether made millions, contracts with Fortune 500s, glowing TechCrunch features, but I got stock options that might as well have been Monopoly money. They called it team effort, slapped Ether on their logo like it was divine inspiration, not my sleepless nights. I told myself it was fine. I was building clout, earning my place. But deep down, I felt the truth. Meritocracy was a fairy tale, and I was the one scrubbing the floors while others wore the crown. The worst part wasn't the grind, it was the invisibility. At team meetings, David would nod vaguely when I spoke, then pitch my ideas as his own. Once, he called me the back-end kid in front of a client, like I was some intern fetching coffee. I'd go home, stare at my laptop, and wonder if I'd ever be more than a shadow in their spotlight. My mom's calls kept me grounded. "You're enough, Hannah," she'd say. But I didn't feel it, not when I was breaking myself for a company that didn't know my name. That's why David's laugh, 6 months ago, wasn't just a moment. It was a fracture, splitting open everything I'd buried. I wasn't just going to take it anymore. I was going to make them see me, even if it meant tearing their world apart. David's laugh wasn't just a sound, it was a blade, slicing through 5 years of loyalty and late nights. I'd walked into his office, palms sweaty, armed with data, Ether's performance metrics, client contracts, revenue tied directly to my algorithm. I didn't ask for equity or a corner office, just a salary that didn't make me feel like a discount hire. He leaned back in his leather chair, arms crossed like he was auditioning for a TED Talk, and let out that chuckle. "Hannah, you're a coder," he said, like it was a diagnosis. "Stay in your lane." I stood there, tasting metal, feeling like the 17-year-old who'd once cried when a teacher said girls weren't cut out for tech. But this time, I didn't cry. I smiled, a tight, dangerous smile, and walked out, already plotting. I wasn't going to quit. Quitting was surrender, and I was done bowing. Instead, I remembered my mom's advice and the patent I'd filed years ago, hidden under my maiden name, Campbell. It was my lifeline, drafted with a lawyer who smelled like cigars and called it my Kevlar vest. Nexicor never checked, too busy chasing Series B funding to read the fine print. That patent covered Ether's core algorithm, the engine of their entire platform. They'd built an empire on it, but I held the deed. And now, David's laugh was the match that lit my fuse. I started small, quiet, methodical. Nights in my cramped apartment, I audited Nexicor's codebase line by line, mapping every instance of my algorithm. It was everywhere: load balancing, data routing, AI training pipelines. I mirrored their production repo to a private server, timestamping every change, building a dossier that screamed, "This is mine." My heart raced with every commit, half expecting HR to knock on my door. But no one noticed. They never did. To them, I was just the girl who fixed bugs while they planned IPOs. Then came the Trojan horse. I pitched a telemetry module to the team, nothing fancy, just a tool to monitor Ether's performance in real time. It sounded so innocent, like I was begging to help. David, in his infinite arrogance, approved it without a second glance. The module went live with the next update, pinging my private server every time my algorithm ran. It wasn't illegal, just telemetry, like a heartbeat proving how deeply my code ran in their veins. By April, I knew exactly where, when, and how often they used it. Every ping was a reminder. They needed me, even if they'd never admit it. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was powerful. And that power felt like oxygen after years of holding my breath. I'd met Marcus Kane once, years ago, at a Women in Tech gala where I'd nervously spilled Pinot Noir on his sleeve. He didn't flinch, just laughed and said, "Call me when they forget who built the engine." I kept his card, tucked in a drawer like a forgotten promise. Now, with my dossier, 57 pages of code lineage, execution logs, and patent proof, I dialed his number. His assistant said he was in Seattle, but when I said, "It's Hannah Campbell with something he'll want to see," Marcus was on the line in minutes. "How bad did they screw you?" he asked, no preamble. I sent the dossier encrypted, and by sunrise, he'd read it. By Wednesday, I was on a flight to Seattle. By Friday, Skypulse, his company, owned my patent. Selling it wasn't easy. Part of me felt like I was giving up my child, the algorithm I'd bled for. But another part, the part that remembered David's laugh, knew this was bigger than pride. Skyples didn't just buy the patent, they weaponized it. Their lawyers drafted a cease and desist, a 30-page missile of legal precision, citing my patent, usage logs, and damages. It hit Nexacore's inbox on a Monday morning. I wasn't there, but I heard from Tara, my old Stanford roommate, who still had friends on the team. David was pacing, whiteboard covered in frantic scribbles labeled risk. By noon, their VP of legal had quit. By 2 p.m., emergency meetings were flying like confetti. I'd been shuffled to a low-profile support role weeks earlier, David's idea of punishment for my attitude. System attitude. It was a demotion disguised as a lateral move, but it gave me access to Nexacore's infrastructure without anyone watching. Perfect. I'd cloned their internal wiki, downloaded Jira tickets, and archived Slack channels, knowing I'd need every scrap of evidence. When the cease and desist landed, it was like dropping a match in a gas-soaked room. Clients started pulling out, spooked by the patent news. One tweeted a scathing thread about Nexacore's ethics problem, and by Monday, 5 major contracts had jumped to Skyples. Ether's stock tanked 15% overnight. David called me to his office, eyes bloodshot, his usual swagger gone. "Hannah," he said, voice tight, "we need your help." I sat, legs crossed, letting the silence stretch. "Help," I said softly. "You built Ether on my code, David. You laughed when I asked for my worth. Now you want me to fix your mess." He offered equity, a C-suite title, everything I'd ever wanted. I leaned forward, voice low. "You had me, David. You chose to steal instead." His jaw tightened. "You're burning it all down." I stood, smiling. "No, I lit the fire. You fanned the flames." I left him there, the offer packet untouched, feeling lighter than I had in years. Catherine Voss, Nexacore's CEO, hadn't said a word since the chaos began, but I knew she was watching. She was the shadow behind David, the one who'd greenlit his arrogance. I'd heard her call me that back-end girl in a board meeting once, like I was a cog in her machine, not the engineer who built it. So when I walked uninvited into the boardroom, I wasn't surprised to see her alone, slate gray suit pristine, lipstick sharp as a blade. Her assistant tried to stop me, but Catherine raised a hand. "Let her in." No warmth, just a nod, like I was a problem she'd already solved. I sat across from her, feeling the weight of her stare. "I assume this is about the fire you started," she said, voice like ice over velvet. I didn't blink. "You built Nexacore on my stolen algorithm. Your legal team skipped due diligence. Now it's Skyples." Her jaw twitched, a crack in her armor. "We can salvage this," she said. "What's your ask?" I leaned forward. "A confession. Admit you erased me." She blinked, slow, predatory. "You want truth?" Companies don't fall because of truth. They fall because of stories. And you're writing a dangerous one. Her tone softened, venomous. "If I name you as the architect, will you walk away?" I shook my head. "This isn't about credit. It's about the rot you let fester." She smiled, a rare misstep. "I underestimated you." I stood, heading for the door. Everyone did. I paused, turning back. "You built your kingdom on sand, Catherine. Now it's drowning." The hallway outside felt like a battlefield, executives avoiding my eyes, engineers whispering. I wasn't Hannah Campbell anymore, I was the storm. Then came the counterattack. An email from IT, urgent security concern. Suspicious data activity linked to your credentials. My stomach dropped. Catherine was framing me for a breach, painting me as a rogue dev who'd stolen code out of spite. I called Marcus Kane at 3 a.m., pacing my kitchen. "They're building a case," I said. He didn't hesitate. "We go nuclear." By noon, Skypulse lawyers subpoenaed Nexacore's audit logs, alleging whistleblower retaliation. I called Tara Nguyen, my old Stanford roommate, now a cybersecurity expert. She listened to my story, then said, "They're not just coming for you, they're making you the villain." "But I can help." Tara didn't waste time. "They're framing you with a backdated data push," she said over coffee in my apartment, her laptop glowing with Nexacor's audit logs she'd pulled through a contact. Sloppy work, time zone mismatch in the metadata. My heart pounded, a mix of fear and fury. Catherine was trying to ruin me, make me the bitter coder who torched the company. Tara's fingers flew across the keyboard. "We've got them," she said, uncovering a timestamp glitch proving the breach was staged. We built a counter dossier, 300 pages of digital receipts, notarized and ironclad. Skyple's legal team sent it to Nexacor's board, no press, just facts. By Monday, Catherine Voss resigned, citing personal reasons. Silicon Valley's guillotine had fallen. I should have felt victorious, but her parting email lingered like a ghost. "Be careful, Hannah. Long memories out here." It wasn't over. Tara warned me my name was on federal watch lists, tangled in Catherine's smear. "It's believable because it's easier to blame the angry woman," she said. I nodded, exhausted but resolute. "Then we keep fighting." The Reddit thread started the next day, r/tech buzzing with whispers of a rogue dev who'd blackmailed Nexacor. A grainy photo of me, red-eyed after a 48-hour coding sprint, captioned, "This is who they trusted." The internet loved the story. Unstable genius burns it all down. I wanted to scream, but Tara kept me focused. "They're loud because they're scared," she said. We traced the threads to a PR firm tied to Catherine's allies. My counter dossier, paired with Skyple's injunction, shut them down. The narrative shifted, posts praising my whistleblower courage started trending. But I wasn't celebrating. I was bracing for the next move. Just when I thought I'd cleared the rubble, an email landed. Confidential acquisition offer from Julian Reed, CTO of Vanguard AI. Julian and I went way back, rivals at the Ascend Hackathon, where I built a flawless algorithm while he schmoozed investors. Now he was offering me a dream job, CTO of Vanguard AI's Skunkworks division, full autonomy, massive equity, my name on every line of code. We met at a Palo Alto whiskey bar, his charm as sharp as his $500 haircut. "You're not a feature, Hannah," he said. "You're infrastructure. Build the future with us." It was everything I'd wanted: control, recognition, power. But something felt wrong. His smile was too smooth, his offer too perfect. "Why no?" I asked, sipping bourbon. He leaned in, eyes glinting. "You're dangerous, Hannah. I'd rather you be an asset than a threat." My stomach twisted. Julian didn't want a partner. He wanted a weapon, just like David, just like Catherine. I saw my mom's face, heard her voice. "Protect your work." I'd fought too hard to be anyone's pawn again. I turned him down with a single line, "I'm not building someone else's empire." His reply was quick, "Be careful. Free radicals don't last long out there." He wasn't wrong. My inbox flooded with vague consulting offers, each a leash dressed as opportunity. I deleted them all. Sitting alone in my apartment, staring at a blank screen, I felt the weight of my choice. I wasn't just free, I was untethered, and that was terrifying. But it was mine. For the first time, I wasn't running from someone else's story. I was writing my own. I opened a blank document, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. Line 1, reflect boot sequence initiated. EH. I poured everything into it. Every sleepless night, every stolen moment, every ounce of fury and hope. Reflect was my answer to Nexacor's lies, an open-source AI platform built on transparency, attribution, and equity. No gatekeepers, no NDAs, just code that screamed my name. I released the beta on GitHub, expecting nothing. Within 72 hours, it was trending #1. Universities emailed about curricula. Engineers who'd once ignored me begged to contribute. Even Tara sent a DM, "This is what we should have built." "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Reflect was my voice, louder than any boardroom. David was gone, his LinkedIn screaming, "Open to work." Catherine would resurface, peddling resilience at some conference, but she'd choke on her own hypocrisy. I coded at 2 a.m., gas station coffee in hand, Kubernetes tabs open I'd never read. I wasn't their back-end kid anymore. I was Hannah Campbell, the architect of my own empire. The industry would never forget again. I'd make sure of it with every keystroke, every line, every tsunami I could summon. To everyone who's walked this jagged road with me, thank you. You felt my fight, my betrayal, my fire. If my story hit you, hit that subscribe button and join the journey. Reflect isn't just code, it's a promise to never be erased. Keep building your truth, and I'll see you at the top.